Hey everybody, Thomas Joseph here. Now today we are tackling cheesecake, everybody's favorite. It's sweet, creamy, rich, and a classic favorite. But there are so many things that can go wrong with this dessert. Well, today I'm going to share with you all of the tricks and tips you need to have a perfect cheesecake. So let's get started with the crust. Now, this is a twist on the classic graham cracker crust. So I'm gonna take 15 graham crackers here and crumble them up into a food processor. Now, if you didn't wanna do the classic graham cracker crust, you don't have to. You can use other cookies that you like. Those vanilla wafers, those are really nice. They're chocolate wafers, which would give you a really great kind of crumbly, sandy crust here. Even your favorite store-bought cookies, like if you like those Biscoff cookies, those are a really delicious kind of spicy version of this crust. And to this, I'm gonna add 1/3 cup of dark brown sugar. Now, usually we use granulated sugar, but I think this really helps. It offers a lot of really great flavor. And also, brown sugar, it has molasses in it, which adds a little bit of moisture to your crust. So this is gonna be a nice sturdy crust, which will help in slicing the cheesecake. Now, to this, I'm going to add a twist, and that is lemon zest. So I need a teaspoon of lemon zest here, and this just adds wonderful flavor. It helps to cut through the richness of the cheesecake. Even a little bit of lime zest would be really fantastic. It plays nicely with the wonderful, rich cheesecake filling. A little bit of orange zest. So this is going right into the bowl of the food processor along with those crackers. And I need about a teaspoon of lemon zest, and that is probably the entire rind of this small lemon. If you have a bigger lemon, you might not need to zest the whole thing. So right in. And then a little bit of salt. This is a 1/2 teaspoon of coarse kosher salt. We always use kosher salt in the test kitchens here at Martha Stewart Living. So when you're making these recipes, make sure you're using kosher salt. If not, if you only have that finer table salt or a fine sea salt, you actually need to use less salt in general. So just be careful of that. So I'm gonna pulse this together until it's kind of coarse crumbs, and then I'm gonna add some melted butter.
طلع الفرق. أي وحدة معمولة من زبدة بقرية. فلورا سكيب ذا كاو.
All right, so this looks good. And now I'm going to add 6 tablespoons of unsalted butter that has been melted and cooled slightly right in. And the butter is gonna help bring this crust together. The consistency is gonna be around like a wet sand, we like to say. And this will press nicely into the base of our springform baking pan. So again, pulse this together until it's nicely combined. And you can see it's not super wet. It doesn't pull together like a dough, but you should be able to squeeze the crust together and it should stay in a nice clump. And this will press nicely into the base of the baking pan. So I'm using a springform pan today. And what's really nice about this is the collar of the pan is very easy to remove, so then you'll be able to get your cheesecake out. Now, one important tip that I want to share with you all is when you put the base of the pan in, you want to make sure that it's inverted, that it's flipped over. Most people will put the base of the pan in like this with the lip up, but this makes it more difficult when you're trying to remove the cheesecake from the baking pan and this bottom kind of dish. It makes it really difficult because then you have to go kind of in and under as opposed to having a nice flat surface where you could just slide your cheesecake right off onto a serving platter. So make sure you put it together properly, and it's very easy to do so. Just like that. And now put all of your graham cracker crumbs right into the center of the pan, and we're gonna press this out to the edges. And you can do this with your hands if you'd like. I really think that a measuring cup is super helpful here because it helps to flatten the crumbs out into a nice even layer. And we're also going to work this crust up along the sides of the pan so that it creates a nice edge which will help to hold all of the wonderful cheesecake filling. So spread this out in a nice even layer to start. It might look like a lot of graham cracker crumbs, but we're really gonna compress these down. And then using a nice measuring cup, I have a 1/4 cup measure here, you're just gonna press around the base of the pan, building up a wall, an edge that will go halfway up the pan. And I didn't mention this before, but this is a 9-inch springform pan. So springform pans come in different sizes, but typically they're either 9-inch or 10-inch. If you only have a 10-inch at home, you can work with that. It will probably just take a little bit less time in the oven baking because it's a thinner layer of cheesecake batter. So this is looking pretty good here. So right into that preheated oven, 350 degrees for 12 to 15 minutes. All right, so our graham cracker crust is done. 15 minutes in that oven. You can see it has a nice golden brown color. It does sink a little bit in the oven, so don't be worried about this. This is gonna be perfect, but leave this off to the side while we make our filling for our cheesecake. So I have a stand mixer here with a paddle attachment. This is really ideal for getting a nice, rich, creamy cheesecake filling. If you didn't have a stand mixer, you could certainly use one of those hand blenders as well. It works just as good. So into the bowl of the stand mixer, I'm going to add 2.5 pounds of cream cheese. This is 5 8-ounce blocks, and really an important thing here, guys, use full fat cream cheese. It's really important to get that decadent, rich wonderfulness that we all know and love with cheesecake. So don't skimp on the cream cheese. You can always have a smaller slice, I would say. So I'm gonna try and plop this into the bowl of my mixer. Now, this is at room temperature, and typically what I do is if I'm gonna make cheesecake, I'll pull the cream cheese out the day before and I'll leave it on the counter overnight, and it softens up really nicely. If you don't have the time to do that, you could take the cream cheese out of the packaging, put it on a plate like this, and maybe in a single layer, and microwave it for a few seconds to get it nice and soft. You don't want it hot at all. So this goes right into the mixer. And I'm gonna cream this mixture together for about 2, maybe 3 minutes until it's nice and kind of creamy. I don't wanna incorporate too much air, so this is gonna be on a medium speed for about 2 to 3 minutes. All right, so our cream cheese has been creaming away here for about 2 minutes, and now I'm gonna add some sugar. I have 1 1/3 cup of granulated sugar, and I'm gonna slowly stream it into the cream cheese so that the sugar kind of gradually dissolves in the cream cheese, which is nice for a consistent creamy batter. So take a little bit of time here and gently stream in the sugar. And this is gonna mix for another 2 to 3 minutes until everything is nicely combined. That's the sugar. Some salt. As always, we like to use salt whenever we're baking. It helps to bring out all of the wonderful flavors. 3/4 teaspoon of coarse kosher salt. We should be about ready to add our eggs. Now I have 5 whole eggs. These are large eggs, room temperature again. You wanna make sure that the egg is fully incorporated in the cream cheese mixture before you add the next. Sometimes if you add all of the eggs at once, eggs are so high in moisture, right? All of that egg white is kind of filled with water. If you just dumped it in all at once, you might end up with kind of a broken batter. So we're really trying to avoid that here by adding them slowly and making sure that they're at room temperature. And the last egg goes right in. And while this is mixing, or finishing mixing, I'm gonna add some lemon. Now I need a tablespoon of lemon juice, and this is from the lemon that I zested and put into the crust. So we're really trying to amp up the flavor here with this cheesecake. But again, this is an ingredient that you can really customize to your taste. So again, if you like the idea of lime, even orange, maybe a little bit of spice, you can really customize this recipe to your personal tastes. So a tablespoon of lemon juice, again, slowly add it to the batter. The acidity here really does help to kind of cut through a lot of the sugar, so the sweetness and also the richness from all of that cream cheese. So the acidity really is a nice addition to this recipe.
حمل تطبيق أمازون وعيش أحلى أوقاتك. ترجيع واستبدال سهل ومجاني.
Reducing the speed to about a low speed, and now I'm gonna add a cup of sour cream. This is, again, full fat sour cream, And this is gonna add really great kind of lightness, I wanna say, to the cheesecake. Not in terms of calories by any means, but sour cream, again, it has that kind of acidity to it. It's a nice kind of light acidity, which helps to lighten this batter up a little bit. And it also helps with the texture. It's not gonna be super dense, this cheesecake. It's still gonna be really rich and delicious, but the sour cream kind of helps to temper out the richness of the cream cheese. So slowly add this in. All right, sour cream in, and the last ingredient, a teaspoon of really good quality vanilla extract. So a teaspoon right into the batter here. We're just gonna mix this up for a few more seconds until everything's nicely combined. Now, if you didn't have vanilla extract at home, you could certainly use a vanilla bean if you have it. Oftentimes, what I like to do is I use vanilla beans in custards and other recipes, and I'll take the pod and I'll actually stick it into a jar of sugar. And this way, whenever I'm making a cake like this and it calls for granulated sugar, I can add that vanilla sugar right in, and I already have the wonderful vanilla flavor to it without using vanilla extract. So there's a little tip for you guys. Now this looks great. Scrape down the sides. I'm gonna remove the bowl and the paddle attachment right to my board here. So just scrape the paddle attachment clean with your rubber scraper. And then I just like to stir around the side of the bowl. Sometimes with these stand mixer bowls, the very bottom of the bowl, if you can see right down here, sometimes it doesn't get mixed very well. So really take your rubber spatula around the sides, around the bottom, and just fold it together. And you should have a nice shiny batter that's light. And then this is gonna go off to the side, and I wanna show you a little trick here. Now, oftentimes, when people make cheesecake at home, they bake the cheesecake in what we call a water bath. So I have a water bath, which is essentially just a large roasting pan filled, I would say, about a third of the way with hot water, and that's in a 325-degree oven, heating up nicely. We're gonna cook this in a low, slow oven with that water bath so that the filling, it's going to cook gently and set nicely. It's not gonna bake up so much where it puffs up and then sinks back in on itself. This is gonna be a nice low and slow cooking process. But sometimes the water can leach into the pan and get your crust soggy and get your cheesecake kind of waterlogged. So a tip here is to take some aluminum foil. I have 2 layers of aluminum foil, and you're basically gonna wrap the sides of the pan with the aluminum foil. And what this does is it helps to create a barrier so that the water does not have access to the pan. So press the aluminum foil pretty firmly against the sides of the pan, and you should have a foolproof barrier now, and no water will get inside your cheesecake. So now I'm gonna fill this with our wonderful cheesecake batter, and it looks like a lot. This is gonna fill the pan up all the way to the top. So we're gonna have a nice thick layer of cheesecake. Gently kind of level this off with your spatula, but this is going to kind of even out nicely in the oven. And now we're ready to transfer this to our water bath. So let's go right to the oven. So this goes right into the water bath, and the water should come about halfway up the side of the springform pan. So this is gonna bake at 325 degrees for about 1 hour and 3/4 to 2 hours. All right, our cheesecake, it looks amazing. It smells great too. So after the 20 minutes of initial cooling, run a small paring knife around the perimeter of the cheesecake. And this is a really helpful tip here, guys, because while the cheesecake is still warm, that running of the knife will help to release it nicely from the sides of the pan. So after that, cool to room temperature, and then this goes into the refrigerator. You can loosely cover it with some plastic wrap if you would like, and it needs to chill for around 6 to 8 hours until it's nice and cold, and that's what I have here. I'm going to release the collar now. If you're having any issues with this, one of the things that you can do is you can actually take a kitchen torch or even a hair dryer if you have it, and you could go around the side of the pan, and what that will do is it will help the cheesecake to release nicely from the collar of the pan. But if you do the little tip with the paring knife while it's still warm, you should end up with something that looks exactly like this. Now, I can't wait to show you guys what this looks like on the inside. I'm gonna cut it right on the springform pan, but you could certainly move this to a serving platter if you would like. I'm using a chef's knife here, standard knife that I've warmed up in a little bit of water, and wipe it clean, or wipe it dry, I should say. And this will help you to get a nice, beautiful slice of cheesecake. So right through. Now the crust is crisp, I can hear it, which is great. That means it's not waterlogged. Hot water again, clean the knife off, dry it off, and cut another beautiful slice right through that cheesecake and the crust. And fingers crossed, and you should have an amazing slice of cheesecake just like that. It's mile high, super creamy, rich and delicious. So there you go, guys, the perfect cheesecake. I hope you give this recipe a try. Now, if you have any kitchen conundrums, please reach